Anyway, this is Dark Arts, and we're back at it showing a little bit more changes and updates to some of the mods here. So I know with the Let's Play I haven't been showing off as many of these videos as often as I've been actually working on other things beyond modding. The game development stuff has kind of been taking the priority, which was always the plan, but it's kind of becoming more so now that we've got our level editor Grogger actually making levels and going through the process. Anyways, we got some minor changes. So for starters, those who missed the other video talking about the changes to the GUIs for data stuff, these data GUIs here will show off like kind of stats about the weapons, and we've actually got better wireless support. Additional changes that I've made here recently is now when a button is disabled, it actually does gray out properly, so it does actually show disabled, so it makes it a little bit easier to see what buttons are clicked, specifically for the power buttons. The only downside to it is it kind of does make the GUI look a little funky when you click through the stuff, but it does really help indicate what buttons are clicked and what buttons are not clicked. Some of these ones I do need to come back through here and disable the colorization. Like for example, these ones do already have a check state for them, so it'll be kind of more useful to get that actually cleaned up and everything else. I still have yet to make an icon, though I did fix the actual ammo bay thing and actually went through and did a few other things. It looks like, yeah, the battery bay is completely turned off on these ones. I'll have to get that fixed here later. Some of the other changes that were made is I actually did work on the permission system. Now the permission system was mildly broken. What I mean mildly broken is it did actually still work. It's just that the GUI version didn't work well. I actually say this, and I think the groups were broken too. So the GUIs were not the most nicest things to work with. One, you couldn't delete them. Now you can actually delete them. This actually will work on anyone that you actually do this list. If you do have a broken list like this one, you're not going to be able to do anything. You're going to have to actually delete this through the file system in order to get to delete. But if you do have a thing, you can come over here and you click delete, actually delete this. It will actually yes or no. If you hit no, nothing will happen. You hit yes, it actually will delete it. You will get an error message at the moment. I have to do it, but come through here, and I still have work to do on this to actually get it working, but you can delete it, which is kind of nice. You also can now access all the settings now. So previously what was happening is this wasn't properly doing permission checks. And nothing was actually working the way it should. So you can actually now get into settings. On top of being able to get into settings, stuff is actually rendering properly. So people who've seen this GUI before will know that these buttons were kind of grayed out. This had to do with a lot of different lighting problems and rendering problems that where a state was being set and then something would render and the state would not be reset, or rather in this case a state was being unset, rendered, and then set again without actually checking if it was ever set in the first place. This was causing problems where lighting was being disabled and re-enabled, thinking that lighting was always enabled for all the components. The problem is GUI components don't really do lighting, so you would get these really dark buttons and text wouldn't render properly, and everything was going wrong with this, and there was tons of like things that were just enabled that wouldn't be enabled. So I spent several hours going through all the render code, figuring out what was wrong with that. Eventually did get it ticked down. So the label was setting it and was disabling and re-enabling stuff. So this is actually a label component, was actually doing that. And then the text boxes were also doing this. So it was causing anything else in the GUI to also mess up. And this is more notable in things like the big list are here, which were almost completely unreadable. We actually couldn't look like it. I can actually show a screenshot of what this did look like beforehand. So let me get this actually opened up. And ignore the dog in the background. She just wants to go back outside and bathe in the sun, even though she was out there like 5 minutes ago. Right before I started recording, I let her outside. So that's a working GUI. So here's an example of something that was working. Like I actually, when I was doing testing, I disabled the background, thinking that might have been a cause. Nope, didn't work. So you get this really broken text that wasn't rendering. Some of the other buttons were actually working, but in the process of actually trying to fix that, I ended up breaking the buttons even more. Broke everything else, but you can see down here where the add button wasn't rendering properly. But you can see the label was rendering well, and the text box was rendering properly as well, but like nothing else in the GUI was working. Now everything is working, everything is doing well, all the GUIs are actually showing properly, and it works. It's actually really, really clean. And of course you can come up here and delete this. You can of course make new profiles. Another bug that was discovered is that if you click anywhere in here, or click for example this while doing a new profile, it would take you back to the previous. This had to do with the fact that and how the system works is everything in the GUI is technically a button, including the GUI frame itself. So this is designed so that way we can detect all the mouse clicks, and really it's just meant to be a way so we can actually build component frameworks without having to reinvent how Minecraft does everything. In the future this actually will change because it's not that hard to reinvent component frameworks and everything else. But of course you can make profiles, so we can make something, say main base profile. for everybody who can get the main base. We hit save, of course that will show up there. It's there, we can refresh it, we can go in and add people to this. We can change permissions. There's still not a way to add groups yet, and there's still not a way to delete groups. This will come eventually when I actually get a chance to work on more settings and everything else. But you can of course add nodes to this to say if another mod came in and actually put some nodes in here. Hopefully they would actually do the default group, but say you had an older group and you want to do your permission nodes, you of course can do that. And of course you can mess with what users are in each group. I did fix some issues with ownership permission checks that were failing, and there was some issues with groups saving their permission nodes, so you would open these up and there'd be no nodes. That's the reason why older versions like this you can't access anything. It's because not a single group has any permission nodes, including the owner group is not marked as owner. This is kind of unfortunate, it did happen. I think what I might do is actually when you're added to an owner group, I might tag the player as an owner too. There's some problems with doing that, but it is something that we actually could go through the process of doing and making sure it does actually work. Of course, the friends list, which is the default list that every single player does generate with, and this is your UUID, so you know it's unique. I am going to disable this rendering in the future so you can't see the ID here or copy it, but this is the default group that you will get, which can be set up. You cannot delete this, and when I do get around to working on this, the only thing you'll be able to do is actually see this GUI. You wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. So instead of actually clicking in here and being able to see groups and stuff, you will just see a friends list and you'll be able to add stuff to it, and it'll be much cleaner and more intuitive to use. And of course I need to fix this stuff, fix the up and down arrow, and then move the packet received over here. But we're getting somewhere. It looks really nice and clean. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. I gotta go walk a dog and let her outside and let her sunbathe and everything else, so I'll see you guys later.